What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fulltime MMA, and we are here today to break down this weekend's fight card headlined by Marlon Vera taking on the former bantamweight GOAT Dominick the Dominator Cruz. That is, of course, going to be our main event, followed by a co-main event, Nate the Train Landwehr taking on David Onama. We've also got other names on the card that you may recognize, such as Gerald, Murzakanov, Bruno, Silva, Devin, Nunes, and Cynthia Calvillo. This is a pretty stacked card. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the breakdown and predictions. But before we get started, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, the subscribe button, and the notifications bell. Don't be a baby back bagel biting beta male, because you know what time it is. It's Full-Time MMA. That's right, this weekend's fight card is headlined by Marlon Vera taking on Dominick the Dominator Cruz. In this fight, Marlon Vera is currently riding a 3-fight winning streak since losing to Jose Aldo, including a highlight reel finish over Frankie Edgar, and most recently Marlon Vera won a unanimous decision victory over Rob Font, which was extremely impressive. Dominick Cruz is currently 2-1 in his last 3 fights since losing his bantamweight title to Cody Garbrandt back at UFC 207, which was almost 6 years ago. If you were counting, Dominick Cruz has only fought 2 times in the last 6 years. That's not very active, but when it comes to Dominick Cruz, ring rust is not something that you hold against him as much as other fighters. We've seen his career be plagued by injuries, and we've seen him come back and have success at the highest level. So that's not as big of a factor to me as, per se, even the age gap in this fight. Dominick Cruz being 37 years old, Marlon Vera entering his prime at 29. In this fight, Dominick Cruz is riding a 2-fight win streak over Casey Kenny and Pedro Munoz, both of those being fought to decisions. This is a tough fight for me to call because Dominick the Dominator Cruz is one of the best proven bantamweights of all time, but it is hard to know how much he has left in the tank at this point due to his inactivity and his age. He's only won 2 fights in the last 6 years, one of those being a split decision. Marlon Vera, on the other hand, is only 29 years old and hungrier than ever as he's right on the verge of a title shot in this division. If he can put away Dominick Cruz or win one more fight after this fight, he will likely be fighting for the title. In this fight, I've got to take Marlon Vera to win the fight. I think he's going to win a decision. Dominick Cruz is a very defensive fighter. He's a genius in the fight, in the octagon. So it's really hard to finish Cruz, and on the same token, him being so defensive and tactical, he doesn't get a lot of finishes either. So with Dominick Cruz, a lot of the fights end up going to decision, and with Marlon Vera, I think that's going to be the route he has to take to win this fight. I don't see anybody finishing Dominick Cruz at this point in his career. He's going to be in there too tactical, too high of a fight IQ, and you're going to have to outpoint Dominick Cruz to beat him. And he's going to be doing his best to try and outpoint Chito Vera, so I do think this fight goes to a decision, but I am picking Chito Vera to win this fight. Moving on to the co-main event, we've got Nate the Train Landwehr taking on David Onama. David Onama is currently riding a 2-fight winning streak since losing his UFC debut a little under a year ago. He's been very active. This will be his 4th fight in under a year since joining the UFC. Nate the Train Landwehr, on the other hand, is 2-2 in the UFC, coming off of a 3rd round anaconda choke victory a little under a year ago. So all of David Onama's fights have came since Nate Landwehr's last fight, so he's been just very active in that time. With that being said, I've still got to take Nate Landwehr to win this fight. He's more experienced against higher level competition, and he should be able to win this fight as long as he can avoid getting finished. David Onama is a very dangerous fighter, and he's well-rounded. 2 of his UFC wins, one of them has been a TKO, one of them has been a submission. So we know he's got finishing power. He can finish you on the mat. He can finish you standing up. He can also win a decision. So this is going to be a tough fight for Nate Landwehr because he's got to make sure to use his fight IQ and not get finished. But if he can avoid getting finished in this fight, I think he will win. Nate Landwehr, I think in this fight, he can win anyway also. He can knock out David Onama. He can submit him. Or he could just grind out a tough, unanimous decision, which I think is a possibility in this fight. With that being said, I'm going to take Nate Landwehr, who's been fighting higher level competition throughout his career, and also I think he's got his opponents in the UFC are a higher level competition than David Onama's as well. So with that being said, I'm taking Nate the Train Landwehr in the co-main event of the evening. Moving on, we've got Gerald Meerschaert versus Bruno Silva. GM3 Gerald Meerschaert recently had a 3-fight submission winning streak snapped when he lost a decision victory to Krzysztof Jotko. Bruno Silva recently had his 3-fight KO TKO win streak snapped when he lost to Alex Pereira. So both of these guys were on 3-fight finishing streak. Gerald Meerschaert all submissions, Bruno Silva all TKOs. Both of these guys are finishers. Both of these guys are dangerous. In this fight, being that Gerald Meerschaert is the better grappler per se, I wanted to pick him, but as you can see, I'm going to be going with Bruno Silva to win this fight. It's tough for me to pick Bruno Silva in this fight, even though he's a pretty big favorite, because Gerald Meerschaert has much more UFC experience, and he's also the better grappler in this fight. That being said, Bruno Silva has finished all of his UFC opponents that he's defeated, including high-level wrestler Andrew Sanchez, which is why he's definitely getting the nod for me, because as we know, Gerald Meerschaert, he's very dangerous in the submission. He's very dangerous on the mat. But if he's not able to get the fight to the mat, he's going to have a lot of trouble with Bruno Silva striking. And if somebody like Andrew Sanchez was finished by Bruno Silva, Andrew Sanchez has phenomenal wrestling. He's got a great wrestling base. So with that being said, if Andrew Sanchez was not able to grind out one of those wrestling-heavy unanimous decisions against Silva, that shows me that Bruno Silva has great takedown defense, or he's at least able to get back up, and he's dangerous enough to be able to finish one of those guys. He finished Andrew Sanchez with a TKO, and that's a guy who can get the fight to the ground. With Gerald Meerschaert, his jiu-jitsu is phenomenal, but you've got to have the wrestling mixed with the jiu-jitsu to really capitalize in a situation like this. And with that being said, I don't know how much better Gerald Meerschaert's wrestling is than Andrew Sanchez's. I know his jiu-jitsu is, but Andrew Sanchez is a tough wrestler himself. So even if Gerald Meerschaert has a decent wrestling background, we know that Bruno Silva can deal with those guys. So I'm taking Bruno Silva to get this win. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a finish. Both of these guys are finishers. Also, though, Gerald Meerschaert could pull out that submission at any time if he is able to find an opportunistic position on the ground. If he's able to get the fight to the ground early in the fight while they're still dry, his jiu-jitsu has a better chance of even taking hold and winning the fight before the sweat kicks in, and it's easier for Bruno Silva to really slip out of some of those submission attempts. So Gerald Meerschaert has a chance to win this fight, but I'm going to be taking Bruno Silva to win this fight, and I think it'll likely be a KO TKO. If not, it'll be a decision. With that being said, I'm taking Bruno Silva. Moving on, we've got Devin Clark versus Azamat Murzakanov. Devin Clark is 7-6 in the UFC, coming off of a third-round TKO victory over William Knight, which snapped a 2-fight losing streak. Azamat Murzakanov is undefeated after winning his UFC debut earlier this year against not really high-level competition, but he's still undefeated at 11-0 overall. I've still got to take Devin Clark to win this fight. Someone's O has got to go. Devin Clark has been fighting against much higher-level competition throughout his entire career. He's been training down there with Jackson Wink and guys like John Jones for a long time, some of the best fighters in the world. A lot of really good fighters come out of Jackson Wink. So he's down there training with some of the best fighters in the world. He's competing with the best fighters in the world, actual UFC experienced opponents. And so with that being said, I put a lot more stock into that than this guy Zero, who's only fought one fight in the UFC. I'm taking Devin Clark to get in here and win this fight. Moving on, we've got Mr. Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo. Nina Nunes is currently riding a 2-fight losing streak, which snapped a 4-fight winning streak that almost earned her a title shot if she could have got past Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez is by far one of the best female fighters in this division. She's been having some health issues, but her wrestling base is really unheard of in WMMA. And once Tatiana Suarez is able to really get her health up under her, she's going to be a problem for this division for a long time to come, as Nina Nunes was able to see whenever she was matched up against Tatiana Suarez. Cynthia Calvillo is riding a 3-fight losing streak after winning a unanimous decision over Jessica Ai a little over 2 years ago. This is a tough fight for me to call because Cynthia Calvillo is likely fighting for her spot in the UFC as she's riding a 3-fight losing streak, so she has everything to lose here. But Nina Nunes has been fighting and training with higher level competition, including the greatest female fighter of all time, her baby daddy, Amanda Nunes. So Nina Nunes trains out of American Top Team. She trains with the best fighters in the world. She's married to the best female fighter of all time. She's just got a lot of high-level MMA around her that are going to give her the edge in this fight for me. On top of that, I'm sure Nina Nunes wants a win in front of her daughter, and she's got a lot to prove herself. So with that being said, just strength of schedule, fight team, and all the other motivations aside, I'm going to be taking Nina Nunes to win this fight. And with that being said, those are my breakdown and predictions for UFC Fight Night. Vera versus Cruz. I'm taking Marlon Vera. I'm taking Nate Landwehr. I'm taking Bruno Silva. I'm taking Devin Clark. And I'm taking Nina Nunes. And with that being said, let me know who you got in the comments. I want to see who you got in the main event. Marlon Vera, you think he can get it done against Dominick Cruz? Let me know. It is what it is. I'm out.